Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today is Monday's Kickstarter roundup video. All of the Kickstarters, all the stuff, still being hit with a lot of things. And next week is worse. In theory, there'll be a break at some point, but today is not that day. And starting off, if you've noticed a crispness in either today's video or yesterday's video, basically I switched my whole webcam setup. I'm no longer using my webcam. I'm using my full camera with a cam link to my studio, whatever it is. So this is my full expensive camera in front of me, and it's a lot crisper and cleaner, which is nice. And props to Brian from Game Brigade, whose channel you see on my screen over here. He does a lot of Kickstarter content as well, and he and I talk a lot. And a while ago, he told me to get this because, or I think I asked him or something, I don't know, but his stuff is amazingly crisp, amazingly beautiful to look at. And I asked him for the tip, and he mentioned the cam link thing to connect my camera. So props to Game Brigade. I'll throw a link in the channel down below. From there, before we start off with the Kickstarters, we also have 5 games for Doomsday. So 5 games for Doomsday is a podcast. They are a podcast. They do interviews. The theory of the podcast is 5 games you would pick if you were going to some underwater or underground shelter for Doomsday or whatever. I mean, end of world scenarios are more common these days, so good timing on the starting of that. And I think he started it before anything happened. But he also has a YouTube channel, and he is one of the most well-spoken individuals I have ever met. Over the year, I've had occasionally people say, like, oh, maybe you should consider scripting or whatnot. And I know many of you don't want me to script, but I've had the occasional comment of, hey, if you script, you'll ramble a little less, you'll circle around a little less. And those things are all true. There's a trade-off between just talking and hoping you can cohesively get to your goal without scripting something versus the rambling that comes along with that. Now, I have never once been tempted to script because it's not what I do. I talk. That's what I do. But over here, 5 games for Doomsday. Ben Maddox. I mean, he is the only person. His content is the only content I have seen that makes me want to craft a script around a video. His stuff is so insanely good. I'll link to his channel down below, but specifically his most recent video is You Should Be Writing About Board Games. Any of his stuff is amazing, that more so than ever. You may have just recently seen him on the Dice Tower, the top 10. I already subscribed before. I'm sorry, subscribed before is cool, but he was just recently on the Dice Tower top 10, and you know the drill by now. 912 subscribers. I'd love to knock him over 1,000. In general, I talk about this. I love pushing people over 1,000. More in general as well. I mean, subscribe to Brian as well. 3.79. Let's get him over 4,000. We can do all these things. They're fun for me, but genuinely watch the content. I'm not just here to give people sub boosts or whatever. Watch the content. I recommend people whose content I find valuable, not just because let's get them over 1,000. His Ben Maddox 5 games for Doomsday. His stuff is absolutely incredible. Go ahead and watch that. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the first 3 Kickstarters, which are going to be cancellations, unfortunately. So to begin with, we have Canosa. Canosa is going to be a Kickstarter that canceled off the bat. They're going to be coming back. In general, most Kickstarters that cancel do seem to come back. Unfortunately, a second cancellation is when you really have to start thinking, okay, great, we took into account all the advice, we tried again, and still nothing. So the second cancellation is where it gets a lot harder, and a third cancellation, we don't want to go there. But generally, most Kickstarters I've seen cancel, I generally do see them come back at some point, whether a few months down the road, whether a week down the road, whether a year down the road, take into account the feedback that people have given them so they can pivot or adjust, change the pricing, adjust the shipping rates, in some way more clearly communicate what they are offering and why. And Canosa is going to be a 2-player abstract where the theme is interesting because 2 players are effectively sirens trying to convince the sailors to move one side or the other. I'm not going to go into that more than that because it's canceled, but you can keep your eyes peeled on that coming back. Candy Wars. Candy Wars unfortunately unfortunately canceled as well. This is one that I talked about it last week, whatever it was. I talked about it last week's roundup, but this one generally, it just wasn't seeing any traction, and that's unfortunate. I would have thought that even just the association with CGS, I would have thought would have been enough to get more traction. Unfortunately, this didn't find its core audience, and they canceled. They may well be pivoting. They weren't clear if or when they are coming back or what their future plans are, but they're taking into account everything, and we'll see what happens next. Next up, and this is one of those which I generally hate doing. 5G canceled as well, and 5G is one that canceled with a little bit of drama, and I don't like going into this because I don't like causing drama. I don't like hurting people, but I also feel audiences should be well informed, and so it's a balance between how you balance that. And with 5G, they effectively had a past Kickstarter. If you want to get a good idea of what's going on, just read the last few updates. Read from About Jeff Camp to Corrections and Moving Forward. That will give you enough of a picture. Now, there do seem to be multiple people involved in this, both the creator as well as collaborators who are trying to help, and it does seem like some messy decisions are being made along the way. Now, the problem with that is if I could just localize that to a single mistake and move on, I wouldn't bother talking about it. But there's enough of a of a history of both a Kickstarter doesn't seem to be delivering, as well as some poor judgment, that this is something that, despite the game itself looking cool, I would say if or when it comes back, do your research, do your own due diligence, see if, I mean, I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm saying ultimately they have a canceled Kickstarter and then some bad customer service in terms of the way they approach people. Now, don't get me wrong. I run Board Game Co. I have occasionally, or in the past, hopefully mostly in the past, but I have said things or written things in response that I regretted later, that were more impulsive, more emotional, and less, just delivering the message or whatnot. And that doesn't make anyone a bad person, but it does mean that the overall tone of a canceled Kickstarter and then calling out a backer by name and engaging in a bunch of poor decisions that are pushing it means I would treat this one with caution if or when it returns. Decide if you're interested enough to take that risk for yourself. But 5G, a little bit of drama around a canceled Kickstarter. From there we go to not funding, which is going to be Oiltown. Oiltown is coming to you from PO Games, or PIO Games, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Played It Once. Is it Played It Once? I wonder what PO Games stands for. Pioneers, PO stands for Pioneers as Discoverers of New Worlds, so it stands for Pioneers, I guess. So PO stands for Pioneers, which means maybe it's PIO. PIO Games is going to be bringing you Oiltown, which is a dice drafting, dice placement game in which you're trying to build out the best oil engine. This one is not currently funding, but check out the video so they currently have 156 backers, 5,000 raised, but 24 days to go. They may well fund. It's going to be close as of right now. Check out the video from Cardboard Rhino. She has a great video, goes into how to play, gives you a quick overview. Overall, the game looks fun. It looks appealing in terms of the general building up of an engine and trying to develop it around, the best, most efficient engine you can. But that is going to be Oiltown. Check it out if you're interested. Not currently funding. From there we have Zombicide Undead or Alive, which I will not be talking about almost at all. I'll be talking about it at a drop, and I'll tell you why I'll be talking about a drop. So I had a full video on this yesterday, so if you want to get the updates on Zombicide Undead or Alive, check out my video from yesterday. Full dedicated video going into everything, including all the miniatures I personally found cool in this game. But in that video, and I said this, I know Command will do this, they always do this to me. So in the video, I literally spent a lot of time complaining about how the only abominations, or most of the abominations that felt Western in theme, were from the extra add-on pack as opposed to all the daily duels that they're giving you. So what do? They drop a daily duel with a Western theme abomination that day. This is what you do to me, come on. Stop putting out things that are directly relevant to the thing I put out the day I put it out. That would be helpful. It really would be appreciated. So we have the Plymouth Hound, which Plymouth Hound, I think it's Plymouth Hound, which is going to be an abomination that actually looks a little bit more Western themed. This is not just pure bulbous gore. This is actually some sort of wolf or whatever. So not full cowboy, but it drives into the theme a bit. That's basically all I'm going to talk about here. Past that, expect a all-in buy or 2 all-in buys coming tomorrow likely, but we'll see. It may even be today. We'll see how it actually plays out. I assume there'll be an all-in buy. It's been a while since Command has not, so I expect to see one of those. Moving on from there, we have Orconomics. No major updates here. They have added a few things because they actually connected. If you're not aware, Orconomics is actually the name of a book as well by an author that they managed to connect with, and they're going to be doing some content in collaboration with him, maybe an industry tile. I wasn't 100% clear what they're doing, but they're doing some extra content. Past that, I'm just mentioning I had my playthrough and review that went up, so you can check out that if you're interested. Overall, I like the game. I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is, for me, is a good game. Not great, not amazing, but one that I'm interested in adding to my collection. At least 3 out of 5s are not always being added to my collection. In this case, I do want Orconomics because I like the engine that it's doing. I like the powers, the abilities, the getting in each other's way. My biggest thing is I just want more tiles to keep the game fresh. But that's going to require lots of backers and hopefully expansions, and we'll see how that plays out. But Orconomics, you can check that one out. As far as the value, I talked about this last week. I don't think this is one you'd see your money back on. The overall demand just isn't there. This may be your best opportunity to get the deluxeified extras. Alternatively, just wait for retail and pick up the game for roughly half the price. Granted, without the extras, but if you're not playing this game a lot, you don't necessarily need those extra nice buildings or whatnot. For myself, I've played it, so I'm happy to back it, but I understand whatever decision you end up making yourself based on, well, how interested you are in the game. Moving on from there, we have Chamber of Wonders. Chamber of Wonders is one that I'm only briefly touching upon just because they have a lot of extra content they've been adding. They've been adding extra expansions, extra content, a full-on Sherlock Holmes bonus pledge that effectively is free with your pledge, so they're adding more and more content. What Ludus Magnus Studios does, or what they did here, is something that they've actually done in the past, and I really appreciated it then as well as now, which is they gave you an expansion that the price will get lower and lower as you complete different goals. Now, that may seem like, oh, well, they'll give it to you for free anyway. No, they won't. They've had this in the past. They already did this in a previous campaign where you were able to to lower the price of the expansion, but in that case, they didn't get it down all the way to free, so they're effectively able to earn a discounted expansion. This goes kind of towards the idea of a real stretch goal and not just an imaginary journey to toy with you that you're going to get anyway. So this one, they actually we got the whole thing for free, so if you are a backer of the campaign, you have the full Catch Me If You Can Sherlock vs. Moriarty expansion completely for free, just adding more value to your pledge. And again, I love the Meeples. The art and Meeples in this game are amazing. Overall, I like this one. I'm intrigued to see what the expansion and content adds. I liked the base game, the 20-minute base game of set collection and just place a worker, set collection, all done, plain and simple. I really enjoyed it. I am curious what else is added and how much more it fleshes out the experience, but I'm happy that they keep adding content because I back the game. Moving on from there, we have Meeples and Monsters from AEG. So Meeples and Monsters is going to be a tough one. So 2,000 backers, nearly $100,000 raised. By the time you're watching this, could well be $100,000. And this is going to be a bag building worker placement game. It's going to be almost combined Lords of Waterdeep with Dominion, and that's kind of the gameplay experience that you have here, because Meeples and Monsters is giving you unique Meeples that you can upgrade, you can put on different. They have a great video, actually. They had a great video. I think it was actually the main video. Yeah, watch the main video for the campaign, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go ahead and take a look. I'm pretty sure this video had it. Yeah, so over here, different videos do different videos have different degrees of quality to how well they convey what the game is about. The video here from Meeples and Monsters is a great video. It will give you a good insight into how the game plays, but overall, you take your workers, you put them on spots, you upgrade your workers, you upgrade the board itself by building more buildings, by accomplishing quests, whole bunch of stuff you can do in this game. Looks fun, looks interesting. I know from people who've played it that they've enjoyed it. I know from the content creators who put out the content here, overall it seems to be well received, and I believe it's a solid game. The only problem we have here is it's a $49 price point, and the retail plans are completely unclear. So they have over here in the FAQ, they have the retail plans over here. What stretch goals do you have planned? The answer is none. There's no stretch goals. What you see is what you get. And they have over here, where is it? Can I pay via PayPal? Will this game be sold in stores? Okay, over here. Will this game be sold in stores? We haven't made that call yet. We would love to, but the game is really expensive to make. If it does go to retail, I would expect it to have a higher MSRP and not include the upgrades from this Kickstarter. I would expect the 4 towers and solo version to be packaged separately as a mini expansion. All that said, we need to stress we have not made this decision yet. So first of all, this is AEG. AEG in the past has not shied away from saying something will not go to retail. So the idea that they're not saying this won't go to retail means it is genuine. Well, it is an unknown. The genuinely part we can't know. We can't know if this is part of a game to introduce FOMO or whether it's real. Now, what I do know is that, I mean, if you follow what's going on in the world right now, both shipping prices and costs of goods for manufacturing are skyrocketing. I mean, I'm a bunch of groups in terms of people who back Kickstarters, retailers, all that, and in general, the price of printing components, the price of wood, all these game components, especially in a game that is 100% made of meeples, the prices of game components are going up. Does that mean this won't be in retail? Not in the slightest. If I had to guess, I would say it probably will end up in the retail. Does it mean that AEG knows it is and is lying to you? I mean, it's a stretch. They might assume it will, but don't know for sure. It could definitely be a FOMO push, and this will work for and against them. So take myself, for instance. I am interested in the game, but I don't feel I need to have the game. And so that FOMO push over there is actually pushing me away from the game. I'm currently not backing Meeples and Monsters because I figure, whatever, I'll get it or I won't get it. It looks interesting. The game looks cool. I do want to try it out, but I'm not willing to play the FOMO game. I'm willing to risk that it will not show up in retail later, and it is what it is. They did say that if it does show up in retail, like I said, they're dropping some of the things from the game, or they assume they'll drop some things from the game. So as far as is it a good value to back or not, it falls into that hard to say we don't know category. If this shows up in retail, then this won't be the best value. Granted, you'll be missing a few things and you'll have to buy those separately as add-ons, but practically speaking, if it shows up in retail, it's likely going to be cheaper given that there's nothing exclusive here. If it doesn't show up in retail, then this may be your best and cheapest way to get the game. This falls into that FOMO, we can't know for sure category. Generally, my recommendation there is make the decision based on what you are not willing to lose out on. If you think this game is amazing, incredible, you're interested in the game, and you don't want to miss out on it, yeah, back it. You may well overpay. That's the price of taking a FOMO-based decision, and that's ultimately going to be Meeples and Monsters. A lack of clear information means you have to make a decision based on what we don't know rather than what we do know. Moving on, we have Silverwood Grove. Now, Silverwood Grove is going to be coming to you from Sam Milham, who's done a bunch of campaigns. He does a campaign seems like every 6 months or so. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Come On does campaigns more frequently than that. I love Come On. But over here we have Lost in Jurassica, Lost in Straya, Silverwood Grove, and Silverwood Grove is actually going to be it looks like it's a bit of a drift from the usual stuff he offers. It looks like it's a bit more in-depth, a bit more involved. The problem is there's no real content creation around the game, so all I have is just what they show on the page. Now, to be clear, it looks great. The art art looks great, the abilities look great, the gameplay looks great. Is this one that actually is a heavier game, or is it just going to be another lighter experience that it wouldn't see game time on my table? I don't know, and the lack of content creators to give me that feel does mean that I'm just not backing this purely because I don't have a good feel for where the game lies. It might be amazing, it might not be. The art's great, but the art in all his games is great, and most of his games do fall on the lighter side. As far as price point is going to come in for $39 for the retail-based version of the game, and it's going to be $59. Sorry, let me take it back. Apologize, because Australian dollars. $30 for the base version of the game, and $46 for the collector's edition of the game, and $57 for a combo and more options because you can get a bunch of all-in, you can get previous games, all that. But effectively, if you're looking at this game primarily, you're looking at either $46 or $30 for the game, which is not necessarily a bad price, but based on his prior games, that track record would not hold up as far as holding its value. Meaning it's one of those tricky things, because if this game is a difference, if this game is a gap from his usual stuff, it could be an entirely different conversation. Overall, this one falls in the category of probably not the best back, but I mean, as far as getting it for yourself, it might not be the worst, but as far as selling it, you're unlikely to get your money back on this game, on Silverwood Grove. Moving on to there, we have Sins, Spawn of Minions. Now, this is going to be a re-Kickstarter or a subsequent Kickstarter for Sins, which already came out. This is going to be a skirmish-based deck builder with multiple decks, multiple Sins, multiple themes you can throw in, a whole bunch of expansion packs, miniatures, all that. This one falls squarely into the unlikely to hold its value at all category, although it may be your best opportunity to get your hands on the game. The problem with this game is there's not a lot of availability for this game. You can't really pick this up in retail, at least nowhere that I could find it, and the secondhand market, there's not enough copies floating around that this may be your best opportunity to get your hands on the game itself. As far as whether it holds its value, it unfortunately will not, or almost, let me rephrase that, it likely will not unless you decide to put it up at the same time someone's buying it and you just happen to find someone who really wants the game. But I would argue that this one falls in the category, generally when you have these rarer games that are a few people are looking for, but not a lot of selling, you usually have to get lucky if you want to get all your money back. In this case, I think that you're unlikely to do so. I mean, the price of the game is not cheap, unfortunately. It's a deck build, a bunch of cards, and we have $59 for the 3 battle packs and the 2 player mats. We have $107 for the dual box pledge, $166 for the triple box pledge, $238 for the deluxe triple box pledge. You're adding tons and tons of stuff to this game for what is effectively some miniatures, some cards. Don't get me wrong, we've seen a lot of expensive miniature games, but very often you need enough of a following, enough of a base, enough of a track record, something to incentivize people to spend that much money on your game. This one's going to come in pretty expensive for what doesn't have a huge following, which does mean it will be harder to see your money back on Sins. Moving on from there, we have Gift of Tulips. So Gift of Tulips is going to be by Giraffe Games, or Weird Giraffe Games, I think it is. Let me see. Weird Giraffe Games. So Weird Giraffe Games is bringing you Gift of Tulips. They have a bunch of other games under the belt, and this is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be like a kind of drafting game where you grab tulips and then you give them to other players, which will potentially give you points, as well as potentially adding tulips to yourself, as well as potentially increasing the market or adjusting the market. It seems to be like one of those, you want to manipulate the market to best afford whatever, but I like how they called it a give that game, give this game, meaning instead of a take that game, it's a give this game because you're giving tulips to each other throughout the game. Overall, it looks fun. I recommend checking out Edo's review. Edo has a good review covering the gameplay, covering the style. If you've played other games from Edo, you'll get a good feel of how this game plays, or what weight class or who the target audience is. As far as the why back now, they have a great why back now section, which is somewhere over here, if I can find it. They had a why back now, which I love when companies put that there. It's much easier, saves a lot of time, gives you a clear picture of what's going on, but of course you have to find it. Why back now? So Kickstarter limited. This game, Gift of Tulips, will be very hard to find after the campaign, as well as that the stretch goals will make the game better for everyone, which effectively means stretch goals are making all games better, retail and Kickstarter, which means the main reason to get this game would be availability. So Weird Giraffe Games has put some of their games in retail, so they do have a track record of doing that, but also some of the games have not hit retail, so this could go either way. With 828 backers, there's enough of a crowd that it could well be in retail. That's before the campaign even ends. I don't know what goes into all the decisions, but there's clearly some degree of audience for this game. So as far as the $19 plus like $4 shipping, $23, what will be the cost of this game later? The cost of the game will be cheaper, almost certainly, but nothing exclusive here. But at the same time, is no guarantee that it'll be there. So I would say if you're interested in the game, pay the $5 extra, get the game on Kickstarter. If you don't mind waiting and you don't feel the need for it, this may well end up cheaper in retail. Moving up from there, we have Caper Europe. So Caper is going to be by, I can't remember the name offhand, Keymaster Games, that's the one. Keymaster Games, who brings you Parks. Now, so first of all, I just want to read something here, which is, I thought was beautiful. For myself, it was beautiful. So, if we go over here, retail information, nope, not that one. Special thanks. Okay, nope, not that one. Why Kickstarter? Here we go. Okay, I'm going to read this one. Keymaster Games is a very small company. Until last year, we only had one full-time employee. And with the success of Parks, almost all of our capital is devoted to trying to catch up with its demand. Without your help, we wouldn't be able to bring Caper back to market this year. Additionally, blah, blah, blah. Effectively, they had a small company with a campaign that was so successful, a game that was so successful. And if you haven't played Parks, you absolutely should. I think it's one of the best. I'm pretty sure it's my top 50 of all time. It is an amazing experience. It is both light and accessible to those who want it, as well as cutthroat and mean to those who want that. Parks is an excellent game. I just got the Nightfall expansion. Haven't played that yet. Not yet. And overall, I'm just thrilled to see that Keymaster Games has been so overwhelmed with the popularity of a game that they're growing as a company, that they're trying to keep up. It's being in this space, no matter who you are, designer, publisher, or content creator, whoever you are in this space, this is still a struggling space. It's still a space that people struggle to pay the bills to make it work. And so it's nice to see it when a company can get that success. I mean, think about it. Even though some of the larger companies, even companies like Orange Nebula or Root, I'm saying Leader Games, or any of these companies, many of them started off as small operations that got that one hit that took them to a point where they no longer had to scramble to figure out which Kickstarter to run to pay which bill, but rather actually to be able to bring themselves to a point of viability. And to quote some people who I know, even then, still no one in this space is driving Lamborghinis. But that's all an aside to the fact that Caper Europe is going to be a streamlined or updated version of Caper. Caper is a 2-player drafting game in which you are playing cards to different sides of locations as thieves to basically rob the location or to win the points, whatever it is. There's a few reviews up for Caper. You can check them out. Tantrum House, Dice Tower, a bunch of reviews and content out there. And Caper Europe is bringing you a streamlined version of the game, meaning updating and tweaking the game and delivering it. There's room for both in your collection potentially, but if you're only picking one based on what I'm seeing, I would recommend Caper Europe. Now, as far as the game, the pledge levels, we have $39 for the Mastermind pledge, and that is it. What is that Mastermind pledge giving you? It's giving you a few things. It's going to be giving you premium game sleeve with foil stamping, so that's going to be the box to the sleeve for the box of the game, embossing in gold foil on top of the box top, alternative box top interior, a Mastermind gold plastic tray insert, metal coins included. To be clear, that's going to be 10 metal coins. It's not like 20, 30 coins. It's 10 metal coins, and then only available on Kickstarter for short time with the pledge manager. Now, you'll also see over here, all community heist challenge unlocks are listed as well. That is not listed in the exclusive to Kickstarter, nor is it listed in the FAQ under what's the difference between the Mastermind and retail, which leads me to believe that those are going to all the copies of the game as opposed to the Kickstarter version of the game. So effectively, you're going to be paying $39 for an insert, some metal coins, and deluxe embossed art on the game, which ultimately that's your decision as to whether that's worth it or not. The game will be available in retail. It will certainly be available for cheaper than the $39 plus shipping for the game. The difference is, I would say the 3 reasons to back this game are, one, just going off that whole it's nice to see your company grow as part. If you want to support the company, by all means, pay the extra few bucks, get this on Kickstarter. Number 2, in terms of getting it faster, you will get this game faster on Kickstarter. Number 3, if you care about those 10 metal coins, the insert, and the box sleeve, you may well care about them. For myself, I'm not such a huge, I don't care as much about metal coins in a game like this. I don't really care about the insert that much, and for instance, Parks has a beautiful, gorgeous insert that I'm now going to be throwing out because I got Parks Nightfall, and I want to keep it all in one box. So it's going to be case by case as to what you value, and box sleeves and embossing and all that, I don't care about at all. The last reason to back the game, and this is a very relevant one, is if this game is anything to go by, if Parks is anything to go by, you may well find that Caper ends up between print runs on a regular basis and having to pay, huge secondhand prices, paying more than this for a regular retail copy. So depending on how popular the game is, especially with Keymasters involved, and especially with Keymasters' current track record, it may well be one of those things where if you don't get it right when it hits retail, you may have to wait in between print runs to find a copy. So overall, I would say if you're really interested in this game, pay the extra $10, back it on Kickstarter. If you don't mind, you're not in a rush, wait till retail. Eventually it'll be on sale somewhere and you'll be able to save $10, $15 down the road at some point, assuming you're in no rush. Moving on from there, we have Cultivate. Cultivate is going to be a game in which you develop a cult. Now, first of all, watch the video. I really recommend watching the video. They did a solid job of being so ridiculously over-the-top cheesy that it managed to be entertaining. Cultivate is going to be 453 backers, 20,000 raised, so it has funded, and this is going to be coming to you, I believe, as a first-time creator over here. Yep, first created from Pops and Bijou Games, and unfortunately over here, the gameplay revolves around developing your cult, so trying to get various people, steal various people, position them on your board in a way that fulfills the criteria of your leaders. of your cult leaders. So you have different like configurations. Let me see if I can find them here. So if you have Pierre Ahmed Scheme, you'll have different configurations of how to line up different type of cult members as everyone tries to mess each other up and get in each other's way. But that's how you're ultimately going to be trying to score points in this game. The main problem here is going to be that the price point of the game coming in at $35 for the game and no real exclusives for the game. They have a sticker, I believe it was. They have, let me see if I can find it over here. They had on one of these pledge levels somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. But basically, I've got a Cultivate Kickstarter exclusive sticker, which is generally one of the things that does not help a game hold its value. Here we go. Here's the Iron On patch or the die cut sticker. So unfortunately, the extras there won't really help sell the game. The reason to potentially back the game, on the other hand, is again either supporting the creator or the fact that this may well not make its way to retail. With 453 backers, that's just not enough of an audience to guarantee that it'll hit retail. So if you want to get your hands on a copy of the game, by all means back it. I do not believe this one will hold its value in terms of being able to sell it on the second-hand market if you find out it's not a game for you. So decide if you're interested in the game and back accordingly. Moving on from there, we have So You've Been Eaten. So You've Been Eaten, which I just put up a video review on this one yesterday. So You've Been Eaten is going to be a 0 to 2 player game, and the 0 to 2 player game part is correct. This is designed by Scott Alms, put out by I can't remember the name, I'm blanking the name, even though I just, Ludi Creations, that's the one. Put out by Ludi Creations, designed by Scott Alms. Scott Alms is interesting because people automatically, myself included, people automatically tie him to the Tiny Epic series, but he does design work outside of the Tiny Epic series, both for that company as well, for Gameland Games, as well as for other companies as well. So he designed So You've Been Eaten. It's going to be, like I said, asymmetric. He also did some of those Button Shy games. Some of the Button Shy solo games, he has done those as well. And so You've Been Eaten is going to be an asymmetric 0 to 2 player game in which you can play as the miner, the beast, the solo miner, the solo beast, or the solo miner versus the solo beast, in which you make no decisions, which will be the 0 player game. And I cover this in my review. I think it's so adorable that they included a full page of rules as to how to play the non-player game, which is I appreciate the commitment there. That's excellent. Overall, the game, the price point. So I covered the review. My own thoughts were I personally preferred the minor solo variant. I didn't like playing as the beast either solo or in the 2-player head-to-head. So for myself, the minor variant is how the minor version is how I am playing the game. For right now, it's in my collection. I'm curious how it holds up long term, just because it's fighting against games like Under Falling Skies is the one that comes most to mind in terms of a dice drafting, dice assigning game that I definitely prefer Under Falling Skies to So You've Been Eaten. But So You've Been Eaten is still fun, so we'll see how it fares long term. Past that, as far as the pledge levels, and you can check out Board Games in a Minute has a great overview showing you how to play. You check out that, and there are a bunch of other. I mean, One Stop Co-op Shop had a great video. I know he loved the game, or at least seemingly loved the game, and so I don't know why I said seemingly. See, he based on his public Facebook post about the game, he was really, really recommending the game. So check that out as well. And there's going to be a bunch of deluxe options for the game. So there's going to be a standard version of the game, which you absolutely should not be backing on Kickstarter. The basic version of the game for $29 plus shipping is going to be on Kickstarter. This will give you just the basic version of the game. You'll be able to get this cheaper down the road. I don't know exactly how much. I didn't see an MSRP listed, but even if it's like, $25, $30, whatever it is, once you factor in shipping, you will be able to get this game cheaper down the road. So I would recommend not getting the basic retail version of the game. Past that, what you could do is the premium version. There's 3 different tiers here. The premium version is going to be $39. It's going to give you all the basic version. Plus, for effectively $10 more, you're getting 8 custom acrylic pieces, which are going to be upgraded version of the cardboard tokens, as well as these wood bacteria pieces, which can be upgraded version of the cardboard tokens, as well as the custom shaped miner for the solo mode this is the solo mode of the beast versus the solo miner, and then the Dyspepto Beast Mole mini expansion, which I have no idea about this because this was not in the copy I got, and I have not looked into this, but it's an expansion with Pepto-Bismol, so I appreciate that if nothing else. From there, the collector's edition for another $10, so $49 this time, is going to give you everything in the previous version, plus triple layer player boards, which are nice, unfortunately. I mentioned this in my review. I said I think it was in my review. I mentioned this somewhere, but the dual layer player boards by far to me is the thing that and it's triple layered here because they're double sided. But that's going to be the thing that I am most interested in terms of deluxifying my experience. Is it worth a full extra $10? I don't know. But additionally to that, you're also going to get the custom shaped acrylic upgrade tiles. Speaking for myself, I didn't use these. I found they obfuscated the actual playability, so I didn't use those tiles. I used the other upgraded components and the player boards, and then the dice tower, which I actually surprisingly did end up using. So I mean, the dice tower as well, all this for an extra $10 is not the worst. The problem is and tuck boxes and a beast die and a UV coated deeper box, so you're getting a lot of extra stuff here to deluxify your experience. The problem is, as I got a bunch of comments on my review talking about, that $49 for this game is a lot of game. I mean, you can buy a button shy game Sprawlopolis and play another game for $10. it's a bit of an apples to oranges comparison. They're not exactly the same, although I do understand. If you are trying to pick and choose where to spend your money on this experience versus something else, by all means, make those price comparisons. I tend to focus more on whether something will hold its value and not so much on whether it's worth it to yourself. That's the decision you have to make, obviously, for yourself as to whether something is worth the money if you are keeping it. I usually am talking more about whether it will hold its value if you find out it's not a game for you and you want to move on from it. As far as that, in this case, it's hard to say, because overall, because I'm biased here, I'm biased between my own opinion of the game, which was it was good but not great, versus the opinions I've seen from a bunch of other people who seem to think it is great. So if it is a great game, if it's a game that does hold up, then overall people will be willing to pay to get that extra content, so that deluxe version will hold its value if it is, loved by the market, people want all that. Versus if it's a good game that, lasts for a few years and doesn't really have a staying power down the road, then it'll be a little harder to hold its value there. I would recommend if you are back in this game, either wait for retail entirely. So if you're getting this game, either wait for retail entirely, or I would go jump straight to the collector version of the game, because that middle version is always going to be a bit trickier, because once people want an upgraded version, they usually want the full upgraded version, especially when you're talking about a $10 price difference. One last thing worth talking about, it's worth looking into the Looted Creations loyalty deposit loyalty deposit system. Effectively, if you've backed enough of their games, and in this case you have to back it at the premium version to qualify, then you start getting little discounts on all their stuff, discounts that can go in the pledge manager. So effectively they're rewarding you for being a frequent backer, a frequent buyer of their games. And so it's worth checking that out if you're looking at this game. Moving on from there, I think it's water time. Water time is definitely water time. Although we have coming up Pagan, Fate of Roanoke. So, Pagan Fate of Roanoke is going to be an asymmetrical deduction game that comes with a base game and expansion. You are either the witch or trying to discover the witch. And I know they put out a whole disclaimer of, they would take the whole witch hunt thing seriously. That's great. I mean, I don't need a disclaimer for this, but I understand that we live in a world where more and more disclaimers can be helpful to accommodate different sensitivities. So, going to the game itself, the Witch and the Hunter is going to be, like I said, so it's going to be an asymmetric deduction game where you're trying to figure out who the witch is, and the witch is trying to activate different villages. I can't remember exactly how it works. The witch is trying to activate different locations, and the hunter's trying to kill different villagers, but if you kill 3 villagers, you lose the game. I can't remember exactly. I recommend checking out, let me see if I can find it over here. I recommend checking out from Meeple University, Stella Loves Board Games, short and sweet. First of all, I mean, I've said this before, but I just want to know what Stella's closet looks like, because every single video, she has a costume. I don't know where she keeps them. I don't know how she gets them. Maybe she runs a costume rental business on the side. That'd be great. I mean, that would be a good source of costumes. Either way, I appreciate the commitment, but if you want to figure out how the game plays in roughly 4.5 minutes, I recommend watching Stella's Short and Sweet. Usually gives you most of the information you need pretty quickly and condensed. As far as the game, it is available on Tabletopia if you want to give it a shot. So is So You've Been Seen, by the way. So You've Been Seen is also available online if you want to try that one out. But over here, we have the game, Pagan Fate of Roanoke. If we can find here we go. So, if you go over here, it's going to be on Tabletopia to try out the game, and the pledge levels for the game are going to be €40 €40 for the Witch and the Hunter, so $48 for the game, and then, if I can scroll properly, $72 for the Go Beyond, which is going to give you the expansion as well. Now, the big problem we have here is that's a lot of money for this game. I mean, there's not a ton of reviews or content out there. I mean, there's not a ton of opinions out there. There are definitely overviews, how to play, but I didn't see anything in the way of opinions from the game, although could be I missed it. But as far as the game itself, $48 for this game combined, or $72 for the game and expansion, plus shipping from a first-time creator, is definitely going to be what's keeping this from going as high as it could. Now, the art looks great, the gameplay looks great. I am interested in the game. I love asymmetric games. I love deduction games. I love this style of gameplay, and it looks very intriguing. Like I said, the art is absolutely gorgeous. It actually looks very similar to me to the art on the Meeples from Chamber of Wonders. I don't think it's the same artist, but it has a very similar tones to the way it's presented. But nonetheless, I'm pulled in by the art. I'm pulled in by the theme. I am skeptical that it'll hold its value. I just think it's very, very pricey for the comparative content you get in this game. And that also does mean, as far as holding its value or not, I just don't think it'll hold its value. On the one hand, you might have a bunch of people who are trying to hunt this down because it's rare and there aren't a lot of people and it's a great game, but it's a lot of money for the game you get, and unfortunately that means I do not think it'll hold its value. As far as if you back it and it's not for you, you will probably end up losing some money on Pagan Fate of Roanoke. Moving on from there, Unfortunately, a very similar thing is going to be Theurgy. Theurgy is an area control game that absolutely looks amazing. I haven't decided for sure if I'm backing this. I do want to back it. I'm looking into this one. This is an area control game with a unique theme. If you watch the Hungry Gamer has a review, also watch this. Watch the video. This is another one where the video did a solid job of presenting and selling the game, at least for myself. It seems like a game where you are slowly taking advantage of just general area control things and moving meeples around, doing whatever, combined with abilities which you'll wipe out other people's meeples and then slowly build enough meeples around the area that you erect your own temple or whatever it is and knock over opponents' temples. It seems to be this interesting aspect of trying to build up the worshippers of your god and figure out how to win from there with asymmetric abilities, an evolving map, or I don't know if it's evolving, a different map every single time. So it's going to be different and varied in the gameplay, giving you abilities, giving you asymmetry and area control. All the things that I enjoy and like in a game, and of course powers and abilities from these cards, the event cards, the tarot monster cards, just tons of things to mix up the experience. I am looking forward to this game. I want this game. I want to try the game. I want to play the game. And by the way, speaking of which, you can play it online. I am 99% sure. I know you could. The only question is whether it's public or not. But over here, let's see if we can find it. We can find it somewhere here. Somewhere. We have add-ons, stretch goals. Stretch goals are slowly getting unlocked. Social goals. And something somewhere. I know they have it. Where can I find it? Let's see. Shipping. Our team. I don't know. I can't find it. So I know they have it available online. I know they were running playthroughs. I just don't know if it's publicly available for anyone to play. But you can check into that. The big problem here is going to be price point again. It's just coming in fairly pricey, all things considered. It's going to be Mortal Pledge level is going to be $54 for the core game, and then $96 for the Divine Pledge level, which gives you access to everything. Now, that's the problem is when you have these, if they had just gone, this is one of those times where I think, and the same thing for Pagan Roanoke, for Pagan Fate of Roanoke, by the way, where when you have a large enough campaign, let's take Zombicide. Let's take Zombicide as a good example of this. What you end up having is you unlock after unlock after unlock. Sorry, optional buy after optional buy after optional buy. What happens is people jump in on those, but you also get people who drop off. You get people who want to get everything, and if they don't get everything, they'd rather just get nothing. They'd rather say, you know what, it's too much, but I feel I'll get half a game, so I'm just going to put my money somewhere else, which is reasonable. It's reasonable to sit there and say, I don't want half a game. I'll back something else, which I was previously on the fence about. So when you have a large enough campaign, there's usually enough of a horde, enough of a swell that the people that pick up the expansions end up counterbalancing well over and beyond the people who drop off from the base game, especially in the case of Command or Zombicide, where they have the base game is going to be the biggest cost versus they make the most money on the expansion, so it ends up working out in their favor. But when you have smaller or first-time publishers or whatever it is with less of an audience, less of a fan base, you run the risk of scaring too many people away. So example, using again Pagan Fate of Roanoke, had they just done the base game, it's easier for someone to sit there and say, I'll pay $48. But now suddenly you push them into that $72 or potentially nothing category. For a game that's a two-player asymmetric, deduction game, it's a little harder because you can just get Fugitive if you want that for like $12. So it is a little bit tricky when you start on pushing people into the expansion range. Similarly to Theurgy, $54 is a much easier pill to swallow than going in for the $96, which means, and you can see this over here, we have 100 backers at 54, 231 backers at the 96. Clearly, people get pushed into that bigger price point. But the question is how many dropped off entirely. So I don't know if it hurt them more than it helped them. But again, that's where when you're looking at the price point of this game, and you're comparing it. I can get Theurgy, or I can get Kemet and Cyclades in retail and end up paying the same amount of money. It is a trickier decision. Again, I'm very interested in this game. It's just the price point is a hard judgment call. As far as whether it'll hold its value or not, it's going to be tough for this one. Overall, with 393 backers, 23 days to go, even if we double the amount of backers, this is unlikely to be hitting retail. It's likely to be Kickstarter exclusive. I don't know if they said it's only Kickstarter exclusive. Let me see if I missed anything. The retailer pledge, I don't recall seeing anything specifically about locking in exclusivity, but it's just fairly expensive considering what you're getting. And sorry, not considering getting. It's fairly expensive considering the alternate area control games on the marketplace. I don't think you'll lose a lot on this one. Everyone I know who has played this game has loved it. Not liked it, loved it. Every person I know, granted it's only a handful, but I know like 5 or 6 people who've played this game, and they've all had nothing but positive things to say about the game, really liking it, trying to share it, trying to spread it. So I think it's a solid game, which might work in its favor. But that price point is still a hard pill to swallow. I think this will be in that, may hold most of its value, but unlikely to hold all. You'll probably lose something on it. Moving on from there. We have Doomlings, the card game. This is another video that's worth watching. This is such a positive video, it almost makes me want to back the game, even though I have genuinely no interest in this style of game. So Doomlings is going to be a lighter card game, which we see a lot of these. I mean, this is going to be the classic Exploding Kittens, plus any other, I mean, right over here, better than Exploding Kittens. So we have, and I believe it probably is better than Exploding Kittens from what I've seen of the gameplay. But overall, it's one of those light play cards to do things. The theme here is you have like 8 or 9 rounds of play, the world slowly ending, and that will twist and mess up your in-game scoring for how the game plays out. But the game itself involves trying to just mess with people with their cards and help yourself and all that, and you're scoring points until the world ends. Try not to think about it, Heather, which is all accurate. That's going to be the overall game. Now, the price point is going to be a few different price points over here. We have $25 for the early bird, which is 8 left as of when I'm filming this. So it's a numeric early bird, not a time-based early bird, which means people will drop off, so you'll have an opportunity to jump in at any point. We have $30 for the Doomlings Classic, $45 for the early bird Doomlings box. I believe there's a nice graphic somewhere here of showing you all the various options of how much stuff you can get. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. $25 gets you the Classic, $45 gets you the Mythlings, the Dinolings, the Dual Color, $69 gets you the Gold Box, all those, plus the Techlings, plus the Meaning of Life. I mean, honestly, $69 for the Meaning of Life is a fairly cheap price, all things considered. Could have made it $42, all things considered. But anyways, that's going to be what's going on there. We have stretch goals, unlock content, or whatnot. I recommend watching the video from Max at Table Knots. We have Core 4 had a video. We had Table Knots had a video of it. I can't find the Table Knots. Why can't I find Table Knots? Table Knots' video is not here. Check out Table Knots. I'll throw a link down below, but Table Knots had a video. Maybe it's because they compared it to mozzarella sticks. That might be why the video's not on the campaign page. But anyways, all of that aside, as far as holding its value, this style of game generally does not. This style of game generally does not have a high aftermarket. It falls more into that mass market zone as opposed to the designer game zone, and mass market games tend to not hold their value the same way designer games do. The same way Exploding Kittens generally hasn't. Unicorn, what's that Unicorn game? I can't remember what it's called, but the Unicorn one, those games generally don't hold their value as much. And that ultimately is going to be Doomlings. Moving on, we have Crimson Company Wildwood Tales plus Digital. This is going to be an interesting one because this is one where I can't perfectly call any value stuff because all the pledge levels include in-game currency to an app. Now, this is something that's happened before. Actually, it happened in Epic 7 Arise, the board game, and something that I missed at the time because I have my whole checklist of the things I look for, the things I go through when I'm looking at a game and trying to figure out will it hold its value, past campaigns, the secondhand market, all these steps that I go through to look things. None of my steps involve looking at, in-game currency for a digital game and comparing that to whatever. So there's always a bit of an always. When that happens, like over here, there's going to be a bit of an unknown. Now, Crimson Company is a game that I have played. I thought it was fun. I thought it was solid, but I have a lot of 2-player games that are like this, and this one wasn't good enough for me to keep. I played it a few times, and I was like, you know what? It's solid, not for me. But overall, it does seem to have enough of a following that they've built it out as a digital app as well. So you can play this both physically and digitally. You collect different cards, you shuffle them up, and then you both play from the same deck. So there's a degree of paying for extra content, but not paying for pay to win because all the extra content you get is effectively shared with the other people. So the content gives you ways to play, but not abilities over your opponent because you're all playing with the shared deck. From that, as far as the actual gameplay, the gameplay involves playing different cards to different sides of these towers to try to pull them to your side based on scoring different towers, and each card comes with an ability as well as a strength. Overall, a fun little puzzle to play. This is going to be bringing you a few different options over here. You have the Wildwood Tales expansion, which is going to be the Wildwood Tales expansion for $11, and that comes with 1,500 shards, which I have no clue what 1,500 shards is worth. That could be a $15 value right there. I got nothing. We have the collector's box over here for $47, which comes with 1,500 shards. Again, I don't know how much that's worth. If you want to keep going, we have the all-in collector's box, which comes with 4,444 shards. That's 3 times as good as 1,500 shards. That's amazing. It's 3 times as good. We have the Become the Avatar, which comes with 7,777 shards. That's 5 times as good as 1,500 shards. You can see I have no idea what I'm saying at all. And then that's it. I can't keep doing this game because there's no more pledge levels to go through. So, ignoring the shards entirely for a second, let's cover the actual pledge levels. So, $11 plus shipping for an expansion is not the worst. You're getting a physical copy of the expansion. It's not the worst, but you're likely losing a few bucks on what you can potentially get it down the road. The $47 for the collector's box, which comes with the collector's box, the 2 expansions, the huge game board, all of that. That is potentially better. This game is not easy to find elsewhere, so it's going to be hard to get your hands on a copy of the game. Right now, the only place I could find it was going to be the Board Game Geek Marketplace, whereas $40 for the regular game, let alone the extra content and the 1,500 shards, which is, again, a complete unknown. So it's very hard for me to give a opinion here, especially because of the shards. I would say if we completely ignore the shards, it seems like a decent price, not a great price, not a bad price. If we add in the shards, it's amazing. I don't know at all. Moving on from there, we have High Noon. High Noon, which is an interesting one to me. So, I have no idea what's going on with High Noon. Let me be very transparent. I have no idea. I tried to find out. I got nothing. I spent like a good 20-30 minutes just trying to figure out what's going on with this campaign, and I have no idea how it's $95,000 raised. I have no idea what happened with their last campaign, which was at $95,000, $93,000 raised, and then canceled. So we have over here, $84,000 funding goal, $95,000 raised, and then canceled. I couldn't find a clear reason. I read through the updates. I read through the comments. I hopped on Board Game Geek. I found a lot of things that talked about, oh, they released statements, and you know what it's like? You know how Bloodstone just canceled, and I know exactly what happened, and I have all these people who are like, well, what happened? I mean, you might know what happened, but other people, who I also might be you, commented, I don't know, why did it cancel? I have no clue what's going on. They funded twice the level, and they canceled. And I happen to know because I've been following along the entire time. But High Noon is that game for me. I've tried following through different Board Game Geek threads. I've tried looking at the updates. I've tried looking through the updates in this campaign. I've tried looking through comments. I have no idea what is going on with this game, or why they canceled, or the fact that they actually produced the game anyway, which is why the first 4,000 people who back this game get rapid delivery. You know, if where we got rapid delivery, because we have enough copies of the game to fill back pledges immediately. So they cover this somewhere the exact amount, but basically they can cover 4,000 copies or something like that. I think no way shipping. Here we go. The first 4,000 starter sets will be immediately fulfilled. So this game was produced, which this is where we get all kinds of crazy. And none of this, by the way, is a problem. I just don't know what's going on. So we have they ended up canceling the campaign, producing the game, relaunching the campaign, selling all of those. They're available to buy right now, so none of that backer feedback. It's just about, it's a pre-order system at this point, although there are expansions that all will be potentially developed, so maybe those haven't been developed, maybe they will be developed. This is all a bit of a long tangent to say I don't know what's going on with this game. If we ignore that, High Noon seems to be a skirmish-based game with, it seems to have some interesting elements. Like, the elements of it has very much like a battle royale loot crate kind of situation going on, where you run around to different spots on the board, unlock loot crates, grab different weapons to help your posse as you fight each other and whatnot. It looks like a fun little skirmish game. The art on the actual tiles doesn't really pull me in. The miniatures seem pretty solid. The card art looks pretty solid. The character sheets looks, they're going for a look there. It works or whatever it is. But overall, that's what we have. And then again, I continue to get lost in this in terms of the price points. So we have $52 for the Sweetwater Pledge on a $60 MSRP, and this is again where I'm just confused and missing something. We have discounted price. The MSRP of High Noon starts at $60. On day one, we're offering $20 off the price. Now, I don't know about you, but $52 is not $20 off $60. So I'm completely confused there. There is on day one. On day one, we're offering $20 off the pledge. That's what's going on there. Okay, so I got that now, because there are a bunch of pledges over here that are no longer available. If you scroll down, you can see no longer available. So in other words, that $40 pledge plus shipping on a $60 MSRP, which is already not that great a value, is now worse on day two onwards. Because a $60 MSRP means you're basically paying full MSRP plus shipping for the game. It's not full MSRP. You're paying full retail plus shipping to get the game, which means if this game goes to retail and you're not a day one backer, it's a straight up bad back. If this game does not go to retail and you're a day one backer, then, if this game goes to retail and you're a day one backer, it's a decent back and not the worst, not the best. So basically, your best hope is that this doesn't go to retail in terms of being available cheaper later, if that MSRP is anything to go by. Now, they have pledge levels going all the way up to $300, which this part, again, I saw tons of drama in the comments about, is there enough value in the $300 pledge? Yes, you get a credit on shipping, but no, you don't get enough stuff. It just isn't worth it. The math doesn't work out. I don't know. I couldn't. There was too much stuff in High Noon for me to feel confident giving you any real assessment of the value. Past the fact that if you're comparing it to MSRP on certain pledge levels, I can just tell you based on MSRP that that's not a good value. But there's so much stuff going on in this campaign that I did not feel confident on, that I figured I would still talk about it, but I'm not giving an assessment of value on the higher pledge levels as far as whether they'll hold its value. I can tell you that they came back from a cancel campaign and got all their funding right back, the first day. So great for them. I'm happy for them. They definitely kept their audience even down the road after everything went weird or whatnot. And that basically is going to be everything in terms of the week in review. That's not the week in review. That's going to be everything in terms of the to back or not to back Kickstarter roundup. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Sorry to end on such a confusing note. Probably should have saved this for next week or something. But until next time, and as always, have a good one. I think it's backwards, right? Can you read that? I don't even know. I can read it. I don't know if you can read it. But it's cool, right? If you can read it. And if you can't read it, it's not as cool. That's a shame. Anyways. So, you know what I do have for this week's spoiler? This week, I forgot to talk about games. I totally forgot this part. I meant to talk about games that are coming next week, like, Super Fantasy Brawl, Everdell, just briefly, because next week's going to be packed. Tons of stuff. But aside from that, I do have spoilerific things if you want that. So, let's do this. Yeah, that was Monster Hunter World. I mean, look at that. It's cool, right? Now, I don't know how this actually plays out. They're going to have, this is coming to Kickstarter, I believe, I should double check when it is. It's going to be April, let me find my list over here. April, something. I think 12th, I want to say. Monster Hunter World, April 20th is currently the day that it's coming to Kickstarter as of now. I already put out a video comparing Primal to Monster Hunter World in case you want to take a look at price points, pledge levels, all of that. We'll see how that goes. I'm excited. I think I saw somewhere that they said it plays best with 3, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know if it plays best with 3 or not, but that will put it above Primal. Not above. That will make it more adjacent to Primal for me, because Primal I preferred with 1 and 2 players, and so I am curious to see how this one plays. I hope it's soloable, because if it's not soloable, it will hit the table less. But if the same play best with 3 characters, I can work with that. I can do that, but we'll figure it out. Either way, I'm definitely excited about this one. It's fighting against Primal, which means it has to be different. If it's the same exact game, I'm just gonna keep the one I prefer the most. I mean, then again, gigantic miniature, tall thingy on my shelf. It is cool. We'll see. Anyways, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.